Good evening, everyone. Millions of us in this country love sport, and I'm no exception. I absolutely love it. There's so much goes on every year, and particularly at the moment, we've got great cricket happening, football, all sorts of things. But what's happening around it? Why on earth are we being distracted away from the actual sport itself and being bothered by things like bending the knee, cancel culture, and 8-year-old tweets? Here to discuss this and that little tournament going on right now with me is Mel Eves, former Wolves legend, amongst other clubs, current sports, performance specialist, and all-round thinking man. So it's a real pleasure to have you back on the show, Mel, and thanks for coming along tonight.
My pleasure, Bill. Always great to see you and obviously have a chat.
Absolutely, and we obviously both of us, one of the things that we have in common is we dearly love sport. And I think the problem I've got at the moment is that despite the fact we love sport and there's so much of it going on, we can't do a show like this without addressing a few things off the pitch that have taken the highlights and taken the gloss of great sports people in a pretty horrendous way. Now, I know, although you're famous for football, you have a wide understanding and appreciation of sports. And I think before we get into the meat of the footy, let's talk a little bit about cricket. Mr. Ollie Robinson, who made his Test debut for England at Lord's, performed pretty darn well, actually. Took wickets, scored runs, and really wore his heart on his sleeve, played really well. But apparently, some 8-year-old tweets, bear in mind the lad's only 26 now, came up where he'd been somewhat disparaging towards women in a kind of pub bantry way and told a rather poor taste joke about Muslims. This forced him to have to read out a public grovelling apology. He was then suspended from international cricket. He then took a sabbatical from cricket for a short time and is now playing in the reserve team for his county. Mel, as a man who's represented your nation in the England B team in the past and a man who's always worn his shirt with pride, how does that kind of treatment of a young sportsman strike you?
There's no easy answer to some of these things because you just have to look at every incident in its own context. I don't know exactly the context with this one with the cricket. I am aware of it, but don't know it completely. But from the outside, and then obviously talking to other people, the consensus is that this is completely over the top, the way that the authorities have gone about it. In that, as you say, this was something that was a tweet when the lad was a teenager. And I think everybody listening, for those that are, say, over 30, so it's a while since you were in your teenage years, I don't think any of us would want all of the debacles and little things we got up to in our teenage years to be exposed to all and sundry. But obviously with tweets that people can go back. But I think that from what I can gather, and I haven't looked into this really deeply, is that there's a bit of what would say a general kind of woke mentality of going over the top with various things, and it just seems that that's in vogue. And unfortunately, the big thing that I'm disappointed, because we're talking about sport, is that sport has been infiltrated from the top, and they're using the player, and it's not the people that run the sport that are getting the stick or getting getting criticised. It's the players themselves, and this is the case is that the people at the top end of sport that dictate what happens is the problem for me. And this is the thing with VAR, and they seem to have be getting better in this European Championship. I think we'll go on and talk about that. That's they've become using common sense on that, and that's the big thing, is that common sense is got to be used, and common sense has to be used with an England player going back 8 years a tweet when the lad was a teenager. And you're thinking, well, has he done anything since? What's his conduct been like? What was his conduct like to actually be picked in the England side to start with? Because I thought, I know for a fact that England selectors, whatever sport that be, they will look at a player, the player's character, he or she's character, as well as how they perform. In other words, they're going to say, how will they be within the squad? How will they get on with the other players? Are they the right? But I don't want, from use a football analogy, I don't want my dressing room disrupted if it's, by somebody that's not in line with everybody else. So I'm sure they've looked into that before. So I can't see. I think that they've probably gone a little bit over the top with how they've treated this particular incident with the tweet.
Yeah, and I think the distressing part of it is not just the fact that this young lad has had probably the greatest day of his life ruined, really, because playing at Lords for a cricketer, it's like playing, scoring a hat trick at Wembley for a footballer, But they've started investigating other cricketers' historic tweets as well, a sort of ethics committee. And one that struck me, and I'll say it because I don't give a toss what these people think. And I think it's absolutely hilarious. But Jimmy Anderson, England's leading wicket taker, who's been playing for England for forever, it would seem, and still probably one of the best bowlers in the world, 11 years ago, did a tweet taking the mickey out of his new ball opening partner, Stuart Broad, saying that his new hairstyle made him look like a 15-year-old lesbian. Now, I've got to be honest, I found that quite funny, and it struck me as the kind of thing that gets said in every sports changing room, in any sport, anywhere in the world. And yet this guy, who is a legend of the sport, has had some stick about it. And frankly, it's lunacy.
It is, because I'm talking about. You have to take things in context and the spirit in which they're said. And unfortunately, the politically correct lobby, which I think is a load of BS, takes things out of context. That's the point. And that it's all about, is it in context? What was the spirit of what it was? And just you have to that's what you have to do. But unfortunately, what they do, if they want to demonize somebody, or if somebody's got it in for somebody, whether it be a political thing, for instance, we know that if one paper or a press or a channel supports more of a particular bias to some party, they're going to paint somebody else who's the opposition in a really bad light. They're going to find anything they can to criticize them, to make them look stupid, and they'll dig and dig and dig till they find something, and then blow something out of all proportion to say, oh, so and so's a racist, or so and so's are this or that, and that. But unfortunately, that's the world we live in at the moment, and that's why I'm saying it is. Things have just gone a little bit topsy-turvy and over the top for me.
Yeah, and that's why I think that the next point I want to come on to as we head towards the Euros in conversation is one of the things really relevant to you, because you had experience of playing in a Wolves side, particularly with some exceptionally good black players in there, exceptionally good guys who were Wolves legends in their own right. And yet before a ball is being kicked in the European Championships, there's a huge row about taking the knee. And and then when we get to the first game, our first time playing in the Euro Championships at home in front of, all right, a decimated small crowd because of these absurd regulations, but all the same, a small crowd. And the first thing that happens is the players are on one knee and there's booing in the stadium. And Gareth Southgate and Gary Lineker and the powers that be of football all condemn the fans. Now, from my point of view, I don't think those fans are booing the players. I think they're booing the fact that someone wearing an England shirt is on their knees. I think that's what they're booing. I don't think they're racist at all. But from your perspective as a player, how do you see this row?
Well, obviously, I've looked into this for many years as regards what's going on behind the scenes, and unfortunately, sport in general, as well as obviously a lot of other, we've got entertainment, Hollywood, we've got TV. It's been hijacked by people with an agenda, and unfortunately, football has been hijacked. And let me just make one thing clear. I think every right-thinking person absolutely abhors anything connected with racism.
Yeah.
At all. And that I commentate on the radio. I do a column in the Sunday paper, and I'm commenting on footballers. I comment on the football.
Mm.
What the player looks like, what his skin color is, what his hairstyle is, makes no difference to me whatsoever. I commentate on the football.
Yes.
And the problem is that everybody is in sympathy with anybody that gets racially abused. Now, I was aware of that, obviously, in the 70s, because I played at Wolves with two absolutely wonderful guys who were probably my best friends coming through the ranks at Wolves, in Bob Hazel and George Berry, who were both black lads, obviously. And I just saw them because they were my mates. But it came out that obviously there was then little bits of problems that they had off the pitch. But that was in the 70s. We're going back. And and certainly I didn't experience any problems at all in the dressing room with the lads or anything. There might have been the odd stupid remarks from the terraces then, more than there isn't obviously now, especially in this country.
Yeah.
But nobody in their right mind would tolerate players being abused because of ethnicity or race or anything like that. It's just nonsensical to me. I mean, and to most right-thinking people.
Yeah.
But as you've quite rightly said, but unfortunately, the thing has been hijacked from the top down, and that's what. But the public aren't stupid. The fans aren't stupid. They're being classed as Neanderthals, but they're far from it. They understand that the game is, but they don't want the game being hijacked for political purposes, and that's unfortunately that's what's happened. It's nothing to do with this. Is nothing to do with being anti-racist, being racist or anti-race or whatever. That doesn't come into it, I don't think, with the fans. They're booing the fact that they don't want politics involved.
Exactly. And of course, at that time when you were playing, I mean, not only did you have Bob Hazel and George Berry, which I think anyone of my age group or beyond will remember them as being pretty imposing characters.
Oh, they were great. They were great lads, good players, but obviously big, physically strong lads as well.
Yeah, and courageous characters. And of course, and this sticks in the throat for me being a Wolves fan, but one of my big heroes as well would have been playing against you from time to time is Cyril Regis.
Well, obviously, I was really good friends with obviously Big Cyril and with Brendan Batson. Unfortunately, we lost the other member of the 3 Degrees.
Laurie Cunningham. And
I didn't really get to know Laurie, but Cyril and, unfortunately Cyril's passed, but Brendan Batson, I still get on well with now. So, I mean, I go back a long way with them. So, but there's never been an issue. That's never really been an issue. I played my first England tour was with my England tour with the B tour that I went on with Sir Bobby Robson was with the first black player to play for England. Viv Anderson.
Yeah.
Was on the B tour and he hadn't played and then he went on to break into the first team, the full team, and he was on the same tour as me, the B tour. So I obviously I've been involved with this since the start, and I can't see that. The problem is with social media. I think it's a social media thing more than anything else, in that you get some keyboard warriors and it's dead easy to just write some stupidity with tweets and everything. So that's the big thing for me. But I don't think it's any the situation certainly from the terraces that I've picked up just doing mainly the radio in games, but you can pick everything that goes on around you. I haven't picked up anywhere near the problems there were in the 70s at all.
Totally different culture, I think, now. I mean, in the 70s, it was something that needed dealing with. It was obnoxious. But I think nowadays it's very different, and I think perhaps the people raising this aren't doing it for the right reasons. I think they're raising it for a political point, as you've mentioned.
Well, that's me looking into it. That's where I think the challenge is, and that's if you do look at the fact that nobody is booing the players. We all love the players. We want the players to do well, but I think that the majority of the fans that are voicing discontent is with the powers that be. Certainly nothing to do with the players.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And I think one other thing on this subject, because I'm interested, this is something I've been meaning to ask you about, actually, because obviously you're into sports performance and you understand sports psychology and very much into inflow, which I hope you'll be able to mention a little bit about getting the brain and body all in sync before you perform. Do you think taking the knee, with all of its historic feeling, to me, if you go on your knee, you're surrendering or you're supplicant in some way. Do you think that has any effect on the players' mental state?
I don't think it has any effect on the players at all, because I think some of them do it because they don't want that. If they don't want to be, it's difficult to then say no, I'm not doing it because I know a bit more about this. But the lads that are doing it and really believe in it, it's not going to make any difference. And the lads that are doing it and just saying, oh well, we're going down for a few seconds and coming up, get on with the game. They're in the zone, they're in flow. As soon as the ref blows his whistle to actually start the game, they'll switch off. Everything's just bump. All they see is it's like a sanctuary. You're in a tunnel and nothing else can phase you. So I don't think it doesn't really.
But that intrigued me, so I'm glad to sort of ask you that question, because it did strike me as a thing that might have some kind of symbolism. But as you say, the whistle's blown, the tournament started.
Yeah.
Now then, Gareth Southgate's first team selection was an interesting one, wasn't it? I know that the result turned out to be what we wanted, but how did you feel about particularly not playing a proper left back and the lineup in general? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's just in certain situations he's just showed some loyalty to players that have done it for him in the past.
Yeah.
So he's picked, and it's worked for him, because there was obviously a big push from this area in the Midlands for Jack Grealish to start, but unfortunately for Jack, I think he will play a part, but he's been out for so long injured, so it's difficult for Gareth to kind of pin everything on him, especially when Raheem Sterling's record for England is first class, and Foden coming in from the other side is stepped up to the plate and won the league with Man City, and when his record for a young man, he's just unbelievable what he's won. He's only 21. You can't get your breath, can you? And Kane up there, but I think he was going on the fact that left back wise, he scored the first goal, didn't he? The free kick. So he's a free kick specialist as well, and and he never lets him down. And sometimes it doesn't matter about the fact you need a left footer as left back and a right footer as right back. I played in front of the most caps or the biggest appearance maker for Wolves was Derek Parkin, who played 609 or something games for Wolves over many years, obviously. And but he came as a right back from Huddersfield, England under 21 right back. And then Wolves had got Jeff Palmer coming through, so he was asked to play left back because Jeff was coming through, and so it ended up that he was a right-footed, but he practiced with his left as well. So he was as comfortable on the left as on the right. But that's why you had, and then Jeff nearly played 500 games, so you had Jeff on the right and Derek Parkin on the left for many, many years. So it's very, you can very easily play people, and also, I mean, I played left wing for a few seasons when we'd got John Richards and Andy Gray up front, and if they were fit, they were playing. They were that good. So I got asked to play wide left, and I couldn't kick the ball with my left foot, but I played wide left. But I learned to go on the left, and I learned to cross the ball with my left, and I learned to shoot with my left foot, and so I could do stuff with my left foot. But I wasn't naturally left-footed. And you see a lot of that now with Foden comes in from the right and he's left-footed, and Sterling comes in from the left, or Jack Grealish comes in from the left and they're right-footed. So that's in vogue. But it wasn't as much in vogue when I played. But I did it, if you know what I mean. So
they call it inverted wingers nowadays, don't they?
That's right, yeah. So you kind of play on the opposite side. So whereas the legend that played before me on the left-hand side for Wolves in the 74 League Cup final, I played in the 80 League Cup final, wearing the same number as me, number 11, was Dave Wagstaff, who had probably got the best left foot that has ever, one of the best left foots ever played for Wolves. And he could conduct an orchestra with that left foot. I mean, it was it was like a magic wand. It was brilliant. So, but yeah, they've changed. And you had people like Terry Wharton, who probably got the best right foot on the right-hand side. And before that, Alan Hinton was a left footer on the left-hand side. And then you always had somebody with a right foot on the right-hand side. Yeah. Usually the right winger was right-footed and the left winger was left-footed. But we've changed all the norms now, so it's all as you say, it's all got inverted.
That's it. Like life in general. But you mentioned
it's all upside down.
You mentioned Harry Kane.
Yeah.
Now this I'm really interested in your view on this, because obviously as a striker yourself, except for that short period out on the left, you look at Harry Kane and his record is fantastic, absolutely. But he's not been fit this season. And in that game, that first game for England, and he appeared a little bit slow on that chance where he was just taking off his foot on the goal line almost. How do you appraise Harry Kane's sort of performance and where he's at fitness wise?
Harry Kane, I thought he was a passenger really. I thought he was poor on against. When we played against Croatia, I thought not poor, but he's not the usual Harry Kane, if you know what I mean. So whether he's just been carrying something or whatever, but he's such an important player but for him to go through the whole game, he had that one chance when he didn't really get onto it. He's very un-Harry Kane-like. He's usually he'll make chances himself as well. If nothing's coming to him, he tends to drop deep and then he'll make stuff happen himself. So he had a quietish game, but fortunately, other people stepped up. But that can happen. I mean, he's been head and shoulders above, as forward line above everybody really, and he literally is one of the first on the team sheet. So I've been very, very impressed with him. But he was a bit under par for himself on against Croatia, definitely.
Yeah, because I saw that and I just wondered who else was in the squad who could play in that position. Should his fitness let him down? And I think it's only Calvert-Lewin who could step up, and I'm not sure that he's ready for that. For the big stage. Yes, he had a good start to the season, but he suffered somewhat after that, I think.
Yeah, Calvert-Lewin started like a house on fire, didn't he? So I like him, but I say he's gone off the boil a little bit. So you've probably got two top strikers that have both gone off the ball at the same time. But they're both obviously very, very worthy of being in the squad, and obviously Harry Kane being captain and leading it. So, but let's just hope that they get better as the tournament progresses.
Yeah, I mean, and when we talk about strikers as well, because I'm intrigued by these things. We have. I was thinking back to Euro '96 the other day because it was probably the tournament I've enjoyed watching the most as an England fan. Yeah. And I always think of Alan Shearer and Teddy Sheringham as being, they'd get into any England side in the modern era. And then you have this debate really about, how does Harry Kane compare to that? And I'd like to throw in another name as well, because I know that this is one you've got close knowledge of. John Richards, who didn't get the England caps he deserved, one of the greatest centre forwards in the 1970s in English football. I know it's hard to compare different eras because there's different styles of football. But if you're assessing each one of those guys, would Harry Kane come out on top?
Well, it's an interesting comparison, and it's very difficult to compare. As you say, Sheringham was a different type of player, probably more. He was probably more of a similar type of player to Kane, to be perfectly honest, Sheringham, as opposed to Shearer and Lineker's of this world were kind of out and out goal scorers. Yeah. And Shearer led the line very well, but he was more of an out and out goal scorer. But I can say there's lots of similarities, obviously, because it's the same position. It's a similar position, but you can only just compare people with what we have now, and I think Harry Kane's probably he's the best we've got, and he has been for a while as an England centre forward.
Yeah. I think Kane's position obviously secured. Foden, you were impressed by, I gather, from your earlier comments.
I've been impressed with Foden anyway. I'd love to find a place for, as you say, Grealish, because when he's firing on all cylinders, he is something special. So whether they can find a way to get him in there, although they went obviously safer in midfield with Phillips. I thought had a good game. Rice, he's the kind of holds things together in midfield, does an awful lot of work defensively, as does Phillips, and Mount works his socks off. So if he goes with that 4-3-3, where can you get Jack Grealish in there, unless it's for Sterling or Foden, and that's why I think Gareth stuck with the ones that he's probably trusted. Also, the fact that Jack's just coming back from that injury. Yeah, he's probably why he's just on the bench at the moment. But he's got him up his sleeve, because there's if to reach the final another 3 or 4 weeks. So, and he's played a few games, so he's proved that he can do it. So he's going to trust him to bring him on if he thinks the game needs changing with 20 minutes to half an hour to go. He knows he can trust Grealish to come on and do it. So, but he didn't need to do that after they got the goal, which he was probably thinking about changes if we hadn't have scored when we did. Because we scored quite early in the second half, there wasn't the pressure on the manager to make changes, because I think we scored just on the hour, or just under the hour, and the hour mark is when traditionally managers will look to make changes, and because we were 1-0 up, is more, I would think, and Southgate being a defender as well, I think he's more in, right, how can we make sure we don't lose? How can we make sure we keep that lead? As opposed to, if it's still no goals, he's probably thinking, and we're not looking as though we're breaking them down or looking as though we can make a breakthrough. I think Grealish comes on then. But the reason I don't think he came on was because we were 1-0 up. We didn't need to get another goal.
Yeah, I think perhaps it'll be useful if we progress and we play some of the better sides as well that need to be broken down a little bit.
Absolutely, yeah. And we've all seen the likes of some of the teams that are out there, and it's not going to be easy against quite a few of them. They're looking decent, aren't they? So, but that's with any tournament. We've got as good at, having looked at us against Croatia and looked at some of the teams, Italy and Spain and the Belgium, etc. I mean, we've got as good a chance. I mean, because then it's all on the day, isn't it? It's just fine margins then.
Yeah, and obviously we've got one of the better teams to play next as well. A little nod to our friends in Scotland, who are obviously one of the better teams in the tournament. So, I mean, I always had this view of England's v Scotland games as being bloodthirsty, tackles flying. Probably based in the 70s. Joe Jordan with one tooth smashing people over.
Yeah.
But I doubt it's going to be like that. Am I hoping for too much?
Yeah, because unfortunately you can't. The physical side of the game wasn't as. It was a little bit more physical, shall we say?
Just a bit.
A few decades ago, and you're probably thinking of kind of going over Adrian's wall and really getting into a proper scrap with 125,000 at Hampden Park or something. But I mean, yeah, it's a bit different nowadays, and you just can't leave your mark and let somebody know that you're there as you used to do. So it's a lot less physical as far as the tackling is concerned, but it's probably more physical in the intensity that the game's played and the running ability of the players and the fitness of the players. I think it'll be very intense, and there will be people in your face all the time. And then it'll just be down to key moments, and unfortunately, as I say, Scotland will be absolutely desperate to get points on the board because of losing their first game against the Czech Republic, and the Czech Republic looked decent, or that was it Strick or whatever, the striker looked decent, good header, and what a great goal by his second one, just inside or just on the halfway line, wasn't it, or just inside the Scots half, but great finish. And Scotland will be wounded, and as you say, form tends to go out the window when it's a local derby, so to speak, or a home nations game. So England can't take it lightly, although they're obviously favourites going into the game, because I think England have got more strength in depth. But if you look at the quality of the players that Scotland have got to choose from that are in the team, as long as they're fit, they're all playing for top clubs.
Yeah,
McTominay, Man United, I've rated him. Obviously, John McGinn, I've rated from. He's done wonders for Villa, and so they have got some. And obviously, their captain Robertson, left back for Liverpool, they've got some great players.
Yeah.
So any one of them can turn it on the day, then England could get embarrassed. But if England are up for it, then we should have enough. But it's probably that. I would say that if we play Scotland at the moment with the quality of the players that England have got, we're probably going to win 7 times out of 10.
Yeah.
And maybe draw a couple, and Scotland might win the one. But it could be that one on Friday night. We don't know, because that's football, isn't it?
Absolutely, that's why we love it, and I think it's a far cry away from the 70s when Scotland would have Alan Hansen, Kenny Dalglish, Graham Souness, players who were world players.
I think Scotland have got a much Yeah, I think they'd got probably better players in depth, or big players, more bigger players than they have now. They've got a few bigger players now, but they haven't got a team full of bigger players, if you know what I mean. Whereas they probably had then. You know, at certain times that Scotland have played England, you kind of looked at the team, you thought, oh, crikey, Scotland have got a hell of a team out. When you look at it now, and you can recognise most of the players, but as you say, they're not as threatening or as awesome as they have been in the past. When you look at some of the names that you've mentioned, you know,
I was going to say we missed on your great mate Andy Gray there as well.
Well, I played with Andy Gray, Frank Munro, obviously one of the best centre halves that played for Wolves, Scottish centre back. I've played against Alan Hansen, uncompromising, by the way. Everybody tells you know what skill he's got, but it was. I tell you what, they didn't mess about stopping you either.
Well, that's the news. I'm interested in this because I always had this image of this graceful centre back that's floating around the place.
Yeah. I remember once playing at Anfield and the ball was played through and I'd beat the offside. I timed my run great.
Yeah.
Next thing I knew, Hansen had clotheslined me. Because I was through. And if he'd have turned to go, I'd got the run on him and it was through. Bang. And of course, he didn't even get a yellow card. It was kind of, well, I'm thinking he's basically just took me out and took me out. And the referee kind of had a little word with me and says, oh, look, don't do that again, Alan. Obviously, the referee's looking at 40 or 50,000 Scousers and thinking, I ain't going to book him. But there you go. But
that might have been one for VAR, I reckon that.
Well, VAR, he probably got sent off. Yeah. In today's game, it was a definite sending off. There's no two ways about it. Then he got away with it. I think whether the referee just said, any more of that. I'm thinking, flipping any more of that, and I'd be off in an ambulance. Any more of that. But yeah, I mean, I also played with obviously one of the best midfielders, Willie Carr.
Oh yes.
So there's some great Scottish lads that I've played with, and yeah, brilliant. But yeah, I mean, when you think of your Dennis Laws and yeah, some wonderful players, Dalglish, obviously, Big Joe Jordan coming at you. Especially without his teeth in. Oh,
yeah, must have been terrifying. Yeah. I mean, this is the beauty of it with football. We can look back at some of these great memories of players and tournaments like this, especially with classic games of Scotland and England. They bring all those great memories back. And from an Englishman's point of view, Gaza clipping the ball over the Scottish defence and running onto it and smashing it home, you know, things like that. They live with you forever, especially. It's like Wolves v Albion, Man United v Liverpool on a national level, Scotland v England. It's the one that I think, well, I'd be looking forward to.
I think everybody's looking forward to it. You know, whichever side of the border and whoever you support, or if you don't support anybody, I think it'll be a great spectacle. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Southgate plays it, because he's got 3 points on the board. Does he go with the same team, or does he rest a few players and give? So I think I've got a feeling he might rest a few players.
Oh, that'd be intriguing.
But we'll see. I don't know.
I think the one he needs to keep is Mings for that game, because he's going to need that physical presence at back.
Yeah, I was pleased for Mings, because he has at times got a mistake or a ricket in him, as we normally say. But I was pleased that he had a really good, solid game against Croatia. So yeah, well done, Tyrone Mings. I thought he was excellent. Yeah,
proper centre back, and I think it made the pill of Connor Cody not playing a little bit easier to swallow, I suppose, because I was desperately hoping to see a Wolves captain out there for England in the Championship, but it doesn't look like that formation is going to really allow for him to play on. I thought.
No, he's in a 4. he's got Stones, and he's you know, if you're going to play a four, it's probably complements playing a left footer there.
Yeah.
So if you've got a right-footed right side centre back, left-footed left side centre back, is probably more the usual thing if you've got a left footer. But so yeah, there was probably a better balance there. But Connie, the big thing with Connie Cody in the squad, he knows, Gareth Southgate knows what he's getting. He's not going to let you down. He's going to support and talk. He's going to talk. He's going to talk to everybody and keep everybody like flying. So yeah, he's infectious, isn't he? He's infectious.
Oh, he is.
Come on, lads, come on. So he's going to be great in the dressing room, and he never lets him down on the pitch either. So that's it. You know, that's brilliant to have somebody like that in your squad.
Did you perfect that Scouse impression from knowing Emlyn Hughes back in the day, or was it the kind of Cody version?
No, it was Emlyn Hughes. Yeah, Hughesy, Emlyn Hughes. Yeah, that was the first one that we got. Yeah, because he used to squeak like that, like.
I thought it when you were doing it. I think this one predates kind of Cody.
Yeah. That's definitely. I'll just keep the same one.
It all sounds the same to those of us in the Midlands. No offence, Scousers. Love you really.
That's it. It's probably a terrible one, but it sounds okay.
It's probably as bad as
you know what we mean.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Anyway, so that was the point.
That's it. When they do a black country accent, it's probably as bad as our Scouse.
All right.
I've been here.
All right, who am you?
So let's assume then that we somehow squeak past Scotland and therefore we qualify. I think you touched on this before. You really think that this England side has got what it takes to win this tournament, or at least have a strong chance?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I think, depending on who, obviously the draw, and if somebody has a bad start, one of the top clubs has a bad start, and they finish third in their group, for instance, and then we suddenly draw them in the last 16 or the quarterfinals, we could go out earlier than you think. But conversely, we could go all the way. But when you get to the knockout stages, it is knockout football. So it depends who we get, it's as you say, it's on the day, isn't it? But I think we've got a really strong. I think he's got a strong squad, and that Gareth Southgate has been blessed with a lot of young lads coming through. Not least young Jude Bellingham, who isn't 18 till the end of the month.
Absolutely amazing.
I mean,
that kid is amazing.
I can't get my head around that. I hadn't signed for Wolves till it's his age. I was still at school. I was taking exams. I was taking A levels. So I mean, I'm thinking, wow. To be playing in, the tournament.
And he looks the part. When he came on, he looked the business.
And he doesn't look out of place at all. I'm saying, wow, what a talent. But physically as well, that's the point. In the fact that he doesn't look out of place, because you can see lads, and this is like the thing that I see for, say, Fabio Silva at Wolves, who's a year older than Bellingham, is I don't think physically he's ready yet.
No,
that's the point. And I think you're going to see a better version of him next season than we have this season, because I don't think that they envisage him playing as much as this season, because they didn't obviously count for Raúl Jiménez getting injured as badly as he was. So that's what's impressed me as well, in that not only can he play, but also physically he just looks the part. He doesn't get fazed by the fact that he's playing with seasoned professionals, whereas most lads at his age are still playing with the same age group, if you know what I mean, or at least under 21s, as opposed to full internationals. Yeah. So that it's been really impressive. Really impressive.
I do think the midfield is actually probably our biggest strength. I mean, if you look at that performance from Phillips, I thought was outstanding, incredible performance. He had literally everything complete midfielder in that performance, and the other guys you've mentioned as well. Add to that Bellingham, and my goodness me, what a midfield that is! I mean, there aren't many sides in world football who can say they're particularly stronger than that.
Well, I was really impressed with Phillips because he got Henderson coming back, and again, I think that Henderson, like Grealish, if he'd have played the number of games for his club before, would probably have got the nod.
Yeah,
but but Phillips, I think, has been absolutely tremendous for Leeds, and Leeds have been a breath of fresh air. And it's right that him being the real key to Leeds' success, that he's transferred that into the England side. So, as I say, and with the likes of Foden, I thought we know how good a player Mount is, and Mount and Rice did an awful lot of work as well, along with Phillips in midfield. And I think that possession-wise, I don't know what the figures were, but I would have thought it was probably 70% of the game, really. And I think England bossed it, didn't they? So,
well, it was outstanding. Now, just for a second, assume that England don't win. So take out our home bias. Who would you put your money on for the other choice if England don't make it?
I haven't seen enough of everybody yet. I'm going to be watching Portugal later. I haven't seen Portugal. I know they've been playing when we've been talking, so I'll catch up with Portugal later on. Who I want to see. I was impressed with Italy. Belgium are obviously the number one FIFA ranked club team, national team, and so 3, 4, 5. But I haven't actually seen enough of everybody yet because we haven't even done all the first games yet. No. So I'm looking to see. I'll know once we get had a chance to have a look at pretty well every team, and we see how things are shaping up after the first 2, 3 games. The group games. I think we'll get a better idea of who's doing what. So, but all I can say is there's going to be probably a handful. There's going to be 5 or 6 teams that will fancy their chances, and I think England are one of those.
Well, I'll take the safe bet and say what I always say every tournament: watch out for Germany, because that's the safe bet to say. Because every tournament they go into it, no one thinks they've got a chance, and every tournament they're always there or thereabouts. So I think that might be the cop-out reply of what might be a useful one. Because I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they manage every single tournament to be in the running. It's just quite an achievement. Anyway,
as you say, Germany have gone off. I don't know whether it's Joachim Löw, he's the manager. Is it his last tournament now or something? I don't know whether he might go out with a bang, but they've dropped off the pace a little bit. I think they're outside the top 10, aren't they, for about the first time in decades, as far as the FIFA rankings are concerned. But as you quite rightly say, Bill, form can sometimes go out the window, and if it just clicks with them, and they have got a mentality and a way of winning things, haven't they? And they just grind bloody results out. And they're frustrating for everybody else, but probably great for them. But they do tend to just grind results out, and they're so freaking frustrating, aren't they? And especially and God forbid it comes to a penalty shootout with them.
Oh, don't mention it. Stuff of nightmares.
Yes, basically, yeah. Instead of don't mention penalty shoot, don't mention the war, don't mention penalty shootouts. Crikey.
Horrendous.
Yeah.
Anyway, as we're coming towards the end, Mel, we've covered so much ground and so many topics, and we've spoken a few times now on these shows and things. I always want to get round to it. I want to, for a couple of minutes, let's talk about, if you don't mind, about your flow and about your. I know you've got books out and you do training and coaching on it. So let's give us 4 or 5 minutes, if you will, of just
Okay.
a little bit of your theories on that, because I think I want people to understand this and to realise that there's something out there that could help, especially in these difficult times with never-ending lockdowns and all bad news. I'd like them to know that there's ways of making yourself perform and feel better.
Yeah, I mean, did I mention Portugal before? Because Portugal won 3-0 earlier on.
There's your tip coming good.
And it's 8 o'clock tonight, so you can have something to eat, or if you haven't done already, after my chat with Bill. But a good gauge to see if Germany are going to be the ones to watch. France v Germany later, so that's a good indicator on what's happening, Bill. So I think I might have something to eat, and I think I might watch that later. So, but yeah, and it's all about performing. So we talk about performing and being in flow or in the zone or present. Now, anybody, whenever you cannot be anxious, upset, peed off, be irritable, can't sleep, anything like that. You can't be that if you are present or in flow or in the zone. You can only be out of flow if you are thinking about stuff that's gone on in the past, or you're projecting stuff that might happen in the future. Otherwise, you're thinking about stuff that can happen in the future, probably aligning that with stuff that's happened in the past negatively.
Yeah.
And so therefore, all of our problems come from not being present or not being in the zone or in flow. Because all those three things, in flow, in the zone, or present, is the same thing. In other words, we are totally and utterly in the now. And we don't, nothing else can. So this is why I say to footballers, when you go out on that football pitch, the fact you might have the taxman or the missus after you, or you've got somebody else chasing you for something, or you're worrying about something, or your lads, one of your kids has just been taken into hospital and you're worried about that. The big thing is that once you're on that football pitch, you can't do anything for 90 odd minutes, but play the game. So therefore, you switch off and you just say, right, I'm totally and utterly in the zone, and then it's all about performing. And you perform when you are in, and this is all about energy states or emotional states. Now, there are what I can do it very easily I usually call them disempowering states and empowering states, or red and green. So it's red for stop, green for go. And if you're in the red, in other words, if you're in fear, you feel you're in guilt or shame, or you're angry about something, those are all disempowering energies or emotional states. The green states start with the courage to do the right thing, and then everything starts from there. And then you go into acceptance, which is accepting that things happen, accepting that goals, the VAR can get involved, the referee can give a stupid decision, so one of the opposition could come through you and then the referee not see it. Things can happen, but you've got to accept that things happen, but it's how you deal with it. And if you're in an emotional state where you're wound up, you've got things going on, you will react normally negatively. So you could get you could get booked, you could get sent off. But if you respond appropriately and you're in the green, you have the courage to do the right thing, you say, right, how can I help my team now? How can I do this? That's happened. That's in the past. We can't reverse the decision that the referee's made. We carry on. And that's the same in life. something happens. I've got this bill from the taxman. Oh, flipping heck, I haven't got it. How do I pay for that? Or how do I handle this? Yeah, you just say, okay, yes, this bill has arrived. That piece of paper itself is not life-threatening. You might think it is because you project that, oh, if I get that and I have to pay that, I could be homeless. And therefore that threatens you because I've got, and then my safety and security is threatened. But we're projecting that in the future, whereas simply by getting a letter that says something from a solicitor or those wonderful people from HMRC doesn't mean anything. It means we've got a letter, so we accept that we got that letter. Right, how do I deal with this appropriately? Oh, where do I get the advice from? Do I get the advice from, is it something for my solicitor or the accountant or somebody else? How do I handle this? Or if it's something to do there, or if it was you, Bill, I'd pick Bill, I've got this, how do I handle it?
Yeah.
And therefore, and then you just get help. But the first thing is to not think, oh, this is the end of the world, and go and throw yourself off a cliff, which unfortunately some people do, because they project the worst case scenario in the future instead of being present and saying, well, at the moment I've got that. Unless the only way that is dangerous is if it's come through the post, if it's a parcel bomb or something. Other than that, it's just a letter with some ink on it, isn't it? If you think about it logically. But it's the meaning that we give it that dictates how we feel, and therefore the emotional state that we're in. So if we get into a state of thinking, right, whatever happens, success, everything in the red that I mentioned about shame, guilt, fear, anger, even pride, which is just below the line, because pride comes before a fall. And it's okay to be proud of what we do. It's okay to get angry at times about certain situations, but it's understanding that to move forward, we have to rise into the empowering state of having the courage to do the right thing. Yeah. And everything up there in the green is what I call an inside-out job. It's unconditional. Everything down there in the red is what I call disempowering, or an outside-in job. In other words, we're conditioned that when we get that, we pass that exam at school, we go to that college or we go to that university, we get that job, we get that position, we get that salary, we get that car, we get that house, we get that perfect partner, we get that perfect family, we get that £1 million or however much is going to turn you on in the bank, I'll be happy. It's always delayed gratification. In other words, once you get that, you'll be happy. In other words, you're relying on something outside of yourself that you haven't got yet to make you happy. And advertisers and promoters know that. So when they sell luxury cars, for instance, they'll sell you the feeling that you're going to be. They don't tell you about the nuts and bolts of the car. They don't tell you how many miles per gallon it does, because they're selling an experience, and they're selling the energy that you're going to be the best thing since sliced bread. And so you're going to have an emotional feeling that, oh, that's great. So you will buy on the emotional state that you're in. And people buy, and salespeople and big advertising agencies know this inside out. We buy stuff emotionally first, and then consciously justify it afterwards.
And at that point, emotionally, we're going to have to pause, because we're coming towards the end, where I wanted people to see what you did and what you thought on this, Mel, because it's brilliant. And I also want people out there to know Mel is available to do these things. So contact him on his social media. We'll attach it to the video. I've been involved and seen him do his classes. It's absolutely inspiring and brilliant. Certainly helped me a lot. And I think he's a great guy who can help you out. So do remember that. And Mel, I want to thank you again for coming on, but telling us your stories, your tales, your experience, and sharing your wisdom with us. It's been a great pleasure.
Yes,
and,
I've learned, as you say, I've learned a lot. I've been all around the world in the last 30 odd years, studying what I do now. But so yeah, I've come a long way from being born in that little fishing village between Wolverhampton and Walsall called Darlaston. So there you go.
and for those of you not from the area, look up Darlaston. You'll see it's not quite as Mel describes.
It's not usually described as a little fishing village anyway, put it that way.
No. And just a brief note to say, you might see along the bottom of the screen, coming soon, UKIP, the original Brexiteers. I won't be conducting the interviews on that one because I've probably got a slight vested interest, but I am going to be one of the guests. So tune in, please. It's my chance to spill the beans and tell everyone what happened. But on that note, thanks again, Mel. And to everyone watching out there, have a wonderful evening. If you've enjoyed the show, click follow and share it with your friends. But from us, it's a good night to you.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks, everybody.